when you're ready to submit your lab, you need to do a couple things to make it print out nicely. First, go up to File, Page Setup. Make sure it's set to Portrait. The default margins are fine. That'll rearrange it a little bit. And then, if the table gets off, you can kind of go back in here. If you go to Table Properties, usually the tables don't get messed up, but if they do, just uncheck that. And if you make it center, it should balance then nicely in your table on your page. So then the next thing you want to do is go up here to Insert, and we want page numbers, and the best ones are these down at the bottom. As soon as it shows it, just type in of, and then you go up to Insert Page Count, and that'll give you the total number of pages. Then you can go through and just kind of check and make sure that there's nothing, you don't have any blank spaces in here that are making it take up more pages, especially if you see an odd number of pages. I tend to print out double-sided, so odd number of pages just runs me over a little bit. So Outliers here, they got some good notes there, and let's scroll down a little bit. If it ends up with a table split between two pages, that's all. You notice something above it, I may be able to just shrink this a little bit. If I shrink that a little bit, now my table's all on one page. Generally, you probably haven't been paying attention to that beforehand because you're not in print preview mode. Oh, that's the other piece. You do want to, at this point, make sure you're in print layout to get a sense of how pages are laying out. And then let's see, now I'm looking down here, not a lot of white space at the top of them, that's good. In general, I want to have all this be on the same page. I'm not so worried about that right now. So wow, a lot of note, guys. Okay, so now we're going to go on to, you see some images here, so those are going on to the next page, and look, there's a whole lot of white space here. So I can probably shrink these a little bit, and if I shrink them a little bit, probably these were better size on the previous, when it was in landscape layout. It may have shown up better. I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, what's going on? Why are we getting this big blank space? I hit undo a couple times. Oops, lost an image there. Hit Z. Hit delete a couple times. I don't know why this is showing up on the next page. Something's keeping it. Sometimes you tweak around with them a little bit. There we go. Now it went up to that previous page. Now they're all nicely kind of laid out there. Again, if you needed to see those, we could zoom back in and get it larger. Here there's some white space underneath it. I'm not so worried about that because the next piece is their model synthesis. And here, again, here's a model they have here that is, the graph was too small. Not their fault because earlier we had it in landscape mode, so there was a lot more space for this. Again, I tweak in here and I can go to Table Properties and let's set it centers. The table's in the center. Let's not worry about those column widths. And that should give us, where'd it go? That probably bounced it down to the next page. So you made some around like that. This one made this middle one way too narrow. I can just tweak these ones around a little bit. Now notice it jumped back up on one page. That's good. And I can clearly make this. So work with your columns and try to make everything fit. Now their graph's a little bit big here. What I could even do is I can go in here. It looks like they've got two images here, I believe. So I can put an enter there between those, so this next image shows up on the next line, and then I can make it a little bit bigger, right? Okay, so now we're seeing things a little better, and here's their graph. Now again, notice it's spread off the page. So I'm just going to make it a little smaller so it ends up on the page. And look, it even popped up and took one less page. So a little bit of attention to layout before you submit it. It's good, and now I think we've got everything fitting on a nice even number of pages. I whited out the names here, but you could, if we do this a little bit, it may have fit those a little better there. Period 2, we probably don't need that as much space. Anyway, just kind of trying to make it look a little nicer before you submit it. So when I go to print it, it'll help me in printing. It'll help you in printing if ever you want it. Just a side note, Google seems to want everyone to say doesn't, but does not is perfectly fine.